actually look at what happened last week. All right. All right, Ben, let's kick off the Sterling Pro Football Net Point Power Rankings portion of the second quarter and take a quick look back at the rankings based on through the wild card playoffs. These are the teams that are left. We're not doing all 32 as we normally do. From left to right in your headings, ranked team, A&P is average net points. APF is average points for, APA is average points against, and ATOD is average turnover differential. So Ben, here we are. Let me say real quick, I'll just do the rundown of the net points for those who are listening in a podcast. Number one, Buffalo plus 12.4, and again, average net points and average turnover differential can run positive and negative. And I did want to mention real quick, Benny, the two teams who were in the negative going into the wild cards were the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Las Vegas Raiders. So they got properly dispatched of. The Philly and the Niners were both in the positive closely. Philly was 13th at 3.5. The Niners were 12th at 3.6. So, you know, so those are some of the teams that didn't make it through. Arizona was actually a plus 4.9, tied with Cincinnati. So, you know, Arizona played some good ball. We talked about that. But they're not left in this list. One is Buffalo, 12.4. Tampa Bay is second at 9.7. Kansas City third at 7.6. The LA Rams fourth at 6.2. Cincinnati fifth at 5.1. Sixth, Green Bay 4.6. Seventh, Tennessee 3.8. And eighth, San Francisco tied with Tennessee at 3.8. Again, your average net points is the differential between your average points for and your average points against. So it's a little easier with this number. You can actually look at it and kind of see kind of what's going to happen when we start to talk about the bias plus reports, where we take into account both the average net points and the average turnover differential when we look at that. Number one across the board for average points for the scoring champ for right now is Tampa Bay at 30.1. The defensive champ is Buffalo, only allowing 17 points per game. And that's, they might have a little skew for the whooping that they put on the Patriots. And again, a referendum on those rookie and young quarterbacks coming into this level of competition. Green Bay, number one in average turnover differential at 0.8. So you see anything in particular that you might want to mention?
Yeah, I see a lot in particular that I don't know if I should mention or not, but I guess since I already stuck my neck out and said I was making my pick for the Super Bowl out of the AFC is Buffalo, I can look at this and I feel even better about that. Number one in average net points, number two in points for, number one in points against. Can't get much better than that. Number three in turnover differential. I mean, the only single team that actually rivals that is Tampa Bay, sitting at number two in average net points, number one in points for, number two in points against, and number two in turnover differential. Nobody else rivals the numbers across the board that those two teams have put up.
That would be a hell of a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a Super Bowl, except I'm not going to name my NFC invitee just yet, but you might think you know who it is. But anyway,
well, yeah, you know, the thing that I saw interesting, I'll just say real quick, how modest Green Bay's numbers are. For it to be the overwhelming favorite, you know, going in against the Niners, you Then, you know, 6, net points 4 plus 4.6, averaging 26.5 points per game. 6th place again, 7th place defensively, giving up 21.8. Now the turnover differential, boom, number 1 at 0.8. But it's pretty close down the line, 0.7, 0.6 between Tampa Bay and Buffalo. So that's a pretty close situation. But
yeah, I mean, we can't forget these numbers have been accumulated over the entire season.
Yes, they have.
And also, all right.
Long story short, Green Bay is down there with San Fran and down there with Tennessee. And I was wondering, especially with Green Bay, could that be a function of what I saw in the NFC East, is that, again, like I said about the Cowboys, you're beating up on, your NFC East, people who are all, themselves struggling. In many cases, you were playing second and third stringers. But Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, when he said to Chicago, I own you. So if he owns Chicago and the Lions pretty much, actually they beat Green Bay in the last game, but that was one of those last game anomalies. Nobody would expect the Lions normally to beat Green Bay if that wasn't the situation. So Green Bay kind of has a lock on that division to some degree, and maybe that division just is not that competitive, so they didn't really necessarily, have to put up 28 plus in order to handle their business, especially if they're only allowing 21. So, that's about a little under 5 points differential there right there. So
nobody else in that division even made the playoffs, did they?
Don't believe so, no. I mean, the hopeful was the Vikings, right?
I mean, it's not. They were able to cruise down.
But 2 out of the 4 teams are getting new coaches.
As they should, obviously. If you don't get 2 teams out of your division, that doesn't say a lot about your division. Basically, it means whoever won the division does own you. He owns all of you. That's what that means.
So, but I just thought that was a little modest. Those numbers were a little modest. Cincinnati is a little modest, Tampa Bay, again, 30 points a game. I was looking at 28 being that point. So my, Green Bay, my Niners, and Tennessee they got to get their offense up a little bit, because these other guys are scoring like that. But everybody's pretty close defensively. I mean, from 4th down to 8th, we're talking less than a 0.6, in points against, and, San Fran is right there, 21.2. You got 2 teams, Tampa Bay and Tennessee, 20.4, 20.8. And then, like I said, Buffalo at 17, which, the Patriots, they really probably brought their average down a little bit with that game against the Patriots on that. So that made them look even better. But in any event, we know that, a matter of fact, I wanted to mention one of your teammates talked about Buffalo's run defense and run game he thought were superior to the Patriots, and he looked like he was pretty much on time with that. You remember that?
Buffalo's run defense was superior to New England's run defense.
Superior to
that's what the person's
game.
Who are we talking about? Their run game.
Yeah, he thought that Buffalo could shut down the Patriots' run game, and he didn't think that the Patriots could shut down Buffalo's run game. That's kind of right.
Okay, well, he's kind of right. But when you're getting blown out, you can't run the ball. You have to get back in the game. You have to attempt to pass. And when you're playing with a rookie quarterback who's already shown that he's got some learning to do, you're going to be in a bad way. Defensively, Buffalo was able to do what they wanted to do against New England, because offensively, New England had no answer. No answer. I said last week, Buffalo's run game has improved. It has improved, and it's improving at the right time. The offensive line is gelling. Everybody seems to be healthy. No COVID cases. Okay. And Devin Singletary has decided that he wants to be the man there, and he has basically taken over. So, okay, fine. New England's run game, I cannot say anything bad about them. But you can't use them if you're down 3 scores. So
I do understand what you're
Buffalo
saying,
doesn't have
but it sounds like you're kind of moderating what he said. But overall, do you think their run game was pretty, their run defense is pretty decent, though? It's up to playoff level. That's the question.
I think okay, I don't know how to say this to not moderate what he said. Okay, if I want to take case by case basis, I would say that the Patriots' run defense is better than Buffalo's run defense. I would say man for man, yard for yard, the Patriots' run game is better than Buffalo's run game. But Buffalo is a far superior team to the Patriots. If the wind blows this way instead of this way, they beat New England by 2 touchdowns instead of losing that game in the wind.
Okay. All right.
They're better. They're just better.
All right. I mean, that's one way to take a run game away from a team is to just, put up a couple touchdowns real quick on them. You know what I mean? And then they have to come out of what they wanted to do, especially if they want to run the ball. So I do understand that aspect of it. Okay. All right. So anything else before we move on to the third quarter?
No, we can move on. I'm ready to go. But I like the way these teams are lining up. This is one of the now we won't know until we get to at least the conference championships and find out who's going to go to the Super Bowl. We won't know if we're going to have a situation like we've usually had in the past where the Super Bowl winner is usually ranked somewhere around 6 or so, because I haven't looked at, I know you have the stats from week 18 and week 17 to see where everybody was at the end of the regular season. A lot of times the top team at the end of the regular season sometimes doesn't even go to the Super Bowl, but I think that'll be interesting. But the way these teams are lined up right now looks really, really accurate as far as I'm concerned, with the only exception being the 49ers.
The other thing I think is that Green Bay got the bye, right?
Yes.
So, that would put them at the top of the conference. But like I said, their numbers look, modest. And
just win, baby.
And the same thing for the Titans, So
just win, baby.
Hey, that might say something of, about them, that might defeat my 28-point thesis and say, nah, you can get it done with 25, 24.
And as you know, that can happen.
As well, it can
happen.
Yeah.
I mean, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
I'm holding on to the 28 for right now, though.
Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Let's not forget.
Say that again?
I said Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Let's not forget. You remember that team went 6 weeks in a row without scoring an offensive touchdown and won the Super Bowl.
6 weeks in a row. That was the Ravens, right?
Yes. They won on field goals and pick sixes and fumble recoveries.
That's a pretty special defense. So,
absolutely. But if you go back and look at those numbers, I bet you they weren't scoring anywhere near 20. Barely.
And wait, who was the running back?
Not Jamal Adams.
Jamali. Yeah. No, not Jamal Adams. Jamal.
Yeah, right.
Molly Mall. That power run game was in effect back.
Right. But they weren't anywhere near 28 points a game. They weren't nowhere.
Right, well,
they could
again, there's a lot of ways to control the game. Time and space.
Just win.
Time and space.
Just win. That's what it's about right now. It's just win now.
Let's talk about who's going to win or who's projected to win in the next segment, where we're going to move on to the third quarter. And again, I remind people, this is Ben and Barry on football. You can get us at www.benandbarryonfootball and find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, podcasts. Anchor, and Spotify.